Good evening, Chicago. Welcome back in to Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio. Adam Karnick with you. Lots to get through tonight. The Bears finally took the field to play somebody other than their own teammates and got a thorough victory at Soldier Field. Justin Fields looked outstanding in his 2 drives. The pass defense, the pass rush especially, was reemergent. But does any of it mean anything? This is, after all, the preseason. Then we're going to start a new segment. We are going to go behind enemy lines with a new segment, Know Your Enemy. Tonight we're going to be talking the Detroit Lions. I think you will recognize and appreciate our guest tonight. He's frequently heard on the station. Zach Puplis will help talk Detroit Lions a little bit with us tonight. To take a look at how our division rivals over on the other side of the lake are doing. And then finally, we'll take a look at the rough week that was for the Chicago Cubs, but at least now they get to go play in the American League Central for the next week plus. That'll be a little bit nicer too. And some fresh allegations out of Northwestern that we've got to catch up on. All that plus more. Buckle on up. Here we go. And hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome on into Chi-Town Weekly. I am your host, Adam Karnick. Excited to be with you here tonight on a very wet and not very August-like Monday evening. Lots to get through on the show tonight. Of course, we're going to be talking about that Bears preseason game from over the weekend, trying to make sense of what makes sense from that game. What should we take away? What should we try to enjoy from that? What should we try to take from that? And then we're going to be starting a new segment. We're going to be looking back across enemy lines, if you will. We're going to be checking in on each of the Bears' divisional opponents over the next few weeks, and we're going to start off tonight with the Detroit Lions. So we'll talk about them a little bit, but we're not going to be all football tonight. We are also going to check in on the Cubs. They had a bit of a rough week last week, and then we'll also, unfortunately, there's some updates out of Northwestern. We've got to go through those as well. But before we go any further, of course, we do need to take care of our homework here at IE Sports Radio. We are sponsored by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, the single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. This is absolutely some of the best jerky you can get your hands on. I've got a couple of bags waiting for me upstairs, so I cannot wait to get into those. To order yours, go to planetjerky.net and place your order there. They ship all across the country. You can also follow them at Plant Jerky and DM them. Let them know where you heard, where you got your jerky from, and they may have some surprises in store for you. Thank you again to our sponsor, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet. And for the last 9 years, IE Sports Radio has brought you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok to keep up with the latest in sports. Also, check out our daily updated website, iesportsradio.com, for sports news, the IE Sports Radio blog. We just had a fresh entry in that over the weekend. Our Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month, pages dedicated to each of our shows, and our IE Sports Radio community forum. And stop by and check out the merchandise in the shop. Thank you for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports. And, of course, this show is available for you on social media as well. You can follow along on Twitter. We are at IESRC, or you can follow along with me personally on Twitter. I am at Adam_Karnick. And without any further ado, let's get into the show. If you're listening live here tonight on Monday night, hop on in. If you're listening live on Spreaker, there's a chat room. You can log on in. We can interact and have some fun that way. Taryn Rodriguez is in the chat room already. Good evening, Taryn. He did Set Point. Actually, he just got done with Set Point, so he's now getting a chance to tune in and listen to us on the flip side of having already done his show rather than having to prep to do his. He's a little upset that the Cubs' struggles over the weekend unfortunately helped out the Mariners, which makes life even harder for his Anaheim Angels. So hopefully the Cubs will be able to take care of their own business there a little bit. But yeah, that was frustrating on a lot of levels. It was not good for the Cubs in the fact that the Cubs lost, and it was not good for the Cubs in the fact that the White Sox could not beat the Brewers at all either. So just a rough week all in all for the Cubs last week. But hop on into the chat room. We can interact and have some fun. That way. Yes, thank you, Taryn. You did in fact keep the seat warm for me. I appreciate that. That was very nice. Nice to come into a warm studio and ready to roll when I got in. So I appreciate that. But let's dive on into the show. And if you are listening later on as a podcast, whether it's iHeartRadio or Spotify or YouTube or any of the other ways that you can follow along and hear the show, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. So what to make of the Bears preseason opener? On the one hand, it's always good to get a win. It's always good to get a win, even in the preseason. You always love to see win. Taryn asking about the Cubs real quick. The Cubs dropped 2 of the 3 against the Blue Jays. Unfortunately, they only won 1 of the 3 games. They dropped 2 out of 3 to the Mets, and they dropped 2 out of 3 to the Jays this past week. So not the best of weekends for the Cubs, unfortunately. But we'll get there a little bit on them. So what to make of this win? First of all, it's always good to get a win. It's always good to get a win, even if it is preseason. I mean, the overall, just the fact that, it had been almost a year since we had seen the Bears win a game. So it's nice just to be able to see the scoreboard reflect that they were on top rather than the other team. But it's preseason, I loved the highlight, the highlight reels. Of course, the first time DJ Moore touches the ball as a Chicago Bear, it's a house call. It's a 62-yard house call where he just outran the defense, and that was that. And Justin operated 2 drives. Both of them ended in touchdowns. Both of them ended in touchdown passes, and both of them ended in long touchdown plays. You had the 62-yard catch and run by DJ Moore, and you had a 56-yard screen pass by Khalil Herbert. I think both of those plays would have finished in the certainly top 10, possibly both finished in the top 5 as far as longest plays of last season. The Bears just didn't have very many long plays last year, certainly not in the passing game. Yes, Taryn, yes, risky stuff having the starters in a preseason game. Honestly, I was the same thing. I was like, to me, heading into the game, it was Justin should play 1 series, 2 at the most. And that's what they did. They kept him to 2 series and then got him out. That's DJ Moore. He had the 62-yard house call, and then he was done. He was out. They did primarily use the backups for the majority of the game, which that's what you should do for preseason. I loved how on social media Bears fans were going nuts. The CHGO guys had what was in my mind the best reaction on the day of Fields finishes with 2 drives at the first quarter. He goes 3 for 3, 129 yards, 2 scores. The CHGO guys decided to extrapolate that and turned it into what it would look like over the course of the entire season. And it was Justin Fields would finish with basically 8,800 yards passing and 136 touchdowns. You know, that's the kind of silliness that you love out of the preseason. And then the pass defense, you got 8 sacks out of the pass defense on Saturday. You know, this is a defense that finished with 20 sacks over the course of the entire year last year. 8 sacks would have been tied for the most sacks they had. You had to go back, I think it's like you had to go back almost 20 years to the last time they had 8 sacks in a game. You just don't see that. And I remember Davidson in the chat last week saying one of the things that the Titans had to work on was their offensive line was a mess. And, hey, the Bears were able to get 8 sacks out of them. But is there really, and you know, and congratulations to Zach Pickens. He got his first NFL sack. You know, it doesn't count yet, but he got a sack in his first professional appearance going against guys that aren't his teammates. He got a sack. Tyreek Stevenson had himself a nice game. The defense had multiple takeaways. It was all in all, it was a strong performance. But does any of it mean anything? And it really doesn't. I hate to put a damper on everything because it was so great to see everything, and it was so much fun to have all that positive energy and positive vibes coming out of Soldier Field after the game. And it was about a win, not just, hey, Justin Fields did something amazing and the Bears improved their draft stock, you know, for next year, for next April. You know, to legitimately be able to celebrate any kind of a victory on the scoreboard, not just the moral victories that we were celebrating all last season. But it's preseason. It's fool's gold. There's nothing there really of substance. I think Tim Jenkins on YouTube put it perfectly. He's a quarterback guru, put it perfectly. He put out 2 videos where they were both total overreactions, where he had one where Justin Fields is a bust after 1 preseason game, and here's why. And then the flip side of it was Justin Fields is going to win the MVP of the league after 1 preseason game, and here's why. And, you know, it's, as fans, we live in that dichotomy, but it's a preseason game. Unfortunately, there's nothing there that we can take from it. I do wonder a little bit that we can take a little bit from some of the personnel battles going on the team. Velus Jones, I think, is in trouble. He's somebody that needs to have a strong camp and needs to have a strong preseason. And he struggled with punts last year, fielding punts cleanly. He muffed a punt again on Saturday. Not good. Not good. Not good from him. He's somebody that definitely hurt his stock. On the flip side, Travis Gibson was at the very bottom of the depth chart on the Bears pass rushing unofficial depth chart. He absolutely improved his stock. Got a sack, had multiple pressures. He was a beast out on the field on Saturday. He did not appreciate being at the bottom of the depth chart. He absolutely improved his stock. So there are some but very small things to take away. It'll be interesting to see after this Saturday, because this is kind of the warm-up game now, the second preseason game. They play the Colts down in Indianapolis, and they're going to be doing some joint practices with the Colts this week. This should be a game where quite possibly we learn a little bit more, but still, you're not going to game plan. You're not necessarily going to be trying to win the game on Saturday, so still take it all with a grain of salt, and the biggest thing is just do not get hurt. Just don't have anybody get hurt. One last thought, and then we're going to take a quick break. I'm still thinking 8 or 9 wins for this team still feels right to me. And here's why. Even though, yes, Yannick Ngakoue is on there now, they have a legitimate pass rusher. We're seeing good things from Fields and Moore, et cetera, and all the other things. If you look at just the starters, yes, absolutely, there's huge improvements as Mike Pat jumps into the chat. Good evening, Mike. There's huge improvements across the top of the depth chart for the Bears. Last year at this time, the Bears' starting wide receivers were Darnell Mooney, Equanimeous St. Brown, and Dante Pettis. Now it's DJ Moore, Chase Claypool, and Darnell Mooney. Your offensive line a year ago was, you were Riley Reif was at right tackle. Now you've got Darnell Wright. You had Larry Borum trying to figure out a spot for himself in the starting lineup. You had Lucas Patrick in the starting lineup on the offensive line this time a year ago. Now you've got Nate Davis penciled in there. You've got Darnell Wright. You've got Tevin Jenkins in the left guard. You've got Cody Whitehair at center. You've got improvements there. You've got TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds at the linebacking core. You've got Yannick Ngakoue at defensive end instead of I don't even remember who was starting at defensive end a year ago. Just such huge differences at the top. But the depth is still what's concerning. Yes, if everything goes perfectly, sure, the Bears are capable of getting double-digit wins. But things never go perfectly. Nate Davis, yeah, he's slated to start at right guard. I'm not sure when the last time he practiced was. They don't have to tell reporters why he's not practicing, so they're not telling reporters why he's not practicing. They're just saying it's nothing serious. Yeah, Lucas Patrick, it wasn't serious last year, and then all of a sudden it turned out that he needed surgery. So just because they say it's not serious doesn't mean it's not serious. You know, there's serious stuff going on with this team that they need to hedge out, they need to figure out. And that you look at the depth on the roster right now, all it takes is Nate Davis being a little banged up, and you're right back to Ja'Terry Carter at right guard. You saw him last year. Cody Whitehair, if he gets banged up, you're right back to Lucas Patrick starting at center, just like we saw a year ago. You know, if something happens to Eddie Jackson, you're back to guys that were here a year ago that you know weren't able to cut it. So that's why I still, 8 or 9 wins still feels right to me for this team as we get closer and closer to kickoff. Ryan Poles said this is going to be a multi-year rebuild. He spent his first offseason just focusing on the teardown. He's now started to do the rebuild. He's done one offseason of rebuilding. We're probably going to have another offseason of rebuilding before this thing is really ready to go. So I hate to put a wet rag on everybody, but hold on to that. We're not there yet. What I hate to have happen is we get into the season and it is an improvement, but because it's not, the Bears are putting up 50 points a game, that everybody thinks it's a failure. That's really where I'm coming from here. All right, we are going to take a quick break, and then on the flip side, we are going to start a new segment. There's 3 other teams in the division. We need to take some closer dives into those teams. And to start things off, we've got a special guest on the other side of this break. Somebody that, well, if you're a regular IE Sports Radio listener, you'll definitely know his voice. He and I usually talk hockey, but we're going to talk football this time. On the other side of this break, Zach Puplis and I will discuss all things Detroit Lions and what they might be looking at coming into this season. You are listening to Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We will be right back after this.
Ladies and gentlemen, hear me and hear me good. If you like sports, then you like the Wait a Minute Show. If you like comedy, then you like the Wait a Minute Show. If you like a different opinion coming from a different angle, then you like the Wait a Minute Show. So join me Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with your host, Jelani J.B. Bodie. And of course, my man Lopan on the WaitAMinuteShow.com. Ain't that right, Lopan?
It's IE Sports Radio. It is your direct feed for all that is sports. It is Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris every Tuesday night right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris is the most comprehensive view on Philadelphia sports exclusively right here on IE Sports Radio. You know what it is, your direct feed for all that is sports. Tuesday night, IE Sports Radio, Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris.
Hey sports fans, are you in the market for Florida sports or just keeping up with the latest in the Panhandle? Palm Tree Sports is a dedicated audio hub to all things sports in the Sunshine State. We cover current events, big news, heavily favored opinions all across the NFL, NBA, MLB, and so much more. So come check us out every Saturday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For a down south education on Florida sports and athletics, it's hosted by yours truly, Corey Pujols, and is powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Los Great, here to give you what you want, here to give you what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy, awesome white tea. We are coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's happening, sports fans? Are you a fan of Southern California sports? Are you looking for a show hotter than a hot summer day in California? Then look no further than the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, where I talk about all things Southern California sports. That's right, all sports teams from Southern California. From the hard-hitting tackles of the NFL, to the killer crossovers and big three-pointers of the NBA and WNBA, to the grand slams of the MLB, to the bone-chilling goals of the NHL, and to the booming kicks of the MLS, the SoCal Supreme Sports Show has it all for you. Oh, and let us not forget about the college sports as well. So join me, Taryn Rodriguez, every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back into Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Debuting a new segment here on the show tonight. Yes, it's important to know yourself. It's important to know your own teams, your own players. But as we get ready to kick off this new NFL season, it's important to know your enemies too. If you want to beat them on the field, you got to understand their strengths and weaknesses too. So over the next 3 weeks, we're going to be getting to know our enemies just a little bit. Going to be taking some closer looks at the Lions, the Vikings, and the Packers. And to start us off and kick things off that with us tonight, you hear him every Thursday night here on IE Sports Radio, 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock in the East, on Lions, Tigers, and Wings. Oh, my. You also, during the hockey season, you get to hear him every Tuesday night with me right here at 8 o'clock Central on IE Sports Radio on the Neutral Zone. You find him on Twitter at The Puplis. He is the one, the only, Zach Puplis. How are you doing tonight, Zach?
I'm good, Adam. How are you?
Doing all right. It's fun to chop it up with you on something other than hockey. So
Right?
I suppose it would be very on the rails for us to just, veer off into left field here.
Well, did you hear the Coyotes might have a new stadium, Adam?
Yeah, I did, and apparently, I think they'll keep the name Mullet Arena for what it's worth.
Oh, they have to.
It's just so on brand.
It's too priceless. Yeah.
It is. It's just way too perfect to call it anything else.
Oh yeah.
But as we get ready, oh, Mike Pat's asking in the chat room, Zach, are you a loud and proud Lions fan?
Well, of course.
Rawr.
Hashtag one pride.
Rawr. So everybody, of course, went through and we did the 8 divisions in 8 days with Larry, or also known as the 2 weeks where Larry gets absolutely no sleep.
Oh, God.
And I don't want to necessarily rehash all that, but as we get ready for the season, the Lions find themselves in a really interesting position. Dare we say it, cautiously, optimistically, are the Lions really the favorites to win the division this year?
Oh, so you're telling me there's a chance?
I guess I am, yeah.
That's what I'm going to go with. It's perfect because it says that there's a chance, but at the same time, it's tongue-in-cheek enough to be like, well, maybe we're just idiots and we're all buying into this hype and there's really no hype, but we'll see. They're coming off a decent season. They were just over 500 last year. It was one of the best seasons they had since the Jim Caldwell days, where they actually made the playoffs like 2 different times, I think, in his tenure. So I'm with you, cautiously optimistic. I would put it at playoffs or bust this year. At the end of the season last year, came down to the very last day of the season, and they still had a chance to make the playoffs. And I figure, anytime that you're still in the hunt at the end of the season, on the very last day of the season, I'll take it, and looking at this year's schedule, I feel like we got a fighter's chance, punter's chance, whatever you want to say. And pretty much any and all the games, maybe minus like 3 of them, Kansas City for obvious reasons. Baltimore, I think it depends on if Lamar's healthy, and the LA Chargers. I just think Justin Herbert's really good. Unless they decide they want to blow a 31-point lead again.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I think that puts us where we're at right now. I think the biggest competition is going to be Minnesota right now, after going 13-4 last year. The Lions last season, they started off rough 1-6, rebounded well to include sweeps of your Bears, the Packers, and they split with Minnesota. And especially with Aaron now gone out of the division, that's definitely going to help things. And with Minnesota, you don't know if what Kirk Cousins and his team did was a flash in the pan, or, are they going to be able to pull all the same levers again to have the same success this year? Or is it lightning in a bottle, kind of like what the Bears did back a couple years ago? But we all know how that ended, don't we? Double doink.
You have to bring,
Well, it's a fair question though. It seems like every couple of years in the North, there's somebody who competes for the wild card. Like, they don't win the division, but they get the wild card and they have some gaudy record, 12-4, 13-4, whatever. But it seems like they just can't sustain it, and it doesn't matter. It's just each team has their turn at the top of the wheel almost, or like, just one step below the Packers.
Yeah. Looking at the chat real quick, you're making Taron Rodriguez very sad by bringing that game up. Though he does say it was a 27-point lead. We're not the Houston Oilers.
So, I figured I'd be making somebody pretty sad with that memory.
and we'll get to the double doink a little later. I'm just going to say that a mantra for many Bears fans during the pandemic was, "You can't kill me. I already died on this day," in reference to the double doink. So we had the playoff. We had a preseason game for the Lions earlier where they beat the Giants. you didn't have Goff play. You didn't have David Montgomery play. They did have the rookie, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Mike brings up in the chat that the Lions draft took him very much by surprise, and the Gibbs pick took me a bit by surprise too. We don't need to rehash the entire offseason. We know the moves at this point. Who are you feeling as we get into this season? Who besides Goff needs to step up offensively for the Lions in order for them to be successful? Or does it need to come from the defense? Where is this team going to be hanging its hat this coming season?
Yeah, for sure. And for that to come from Mike Pat, I mean, didn't Mike win the mock draft last year?
He may have. I'm sure he has the records a lot closer on hand than I do.
Last year, the year before. I mean, so I mean that comes on good authority that it surprised him. And to be honest, I mean, with the way running back contracts are kind of being devalued these days, like normally it's like, okay, you get through your first one, then you really get the real money on the second contract. But running backs, their contracts aren't lasting that long anymore. They get through the one and then they get discarded. Look at Ezekiel Elliott. So for them to draft Jahmyr that high, yeah, that was surprising. But you pair him with Jameson Williams once he's back from suspension.
You can only gamble at home, not anywhere else.
Right.
Don't ask the league why, but that's the way it is.
I understand. They don't, perception's reality. They don't want any kind of improprieties or even the perception of impropriety happening on their stadiums or in their home fields or wherever. But cue the Red Foreman. What a dumbass.
Yeah. Oh, and Mike informed me, actually, apparently I won the mock draft challenge this year. Whoops. Mike won it last year. Taryn won it the year before that. So we've got several winners of the mock draft challenge here with us.
There we go. Sorry, I was thinking of the one he won 2 years ago. But
okay.
But that proves he did such a good job that, again, it comes on good authority that Jahmyr was a big surprise to him. I mean, if he won the mock draft 2 years ago, he knows what he's doing in terms of drafting, unlike you and I with the NHL one.
Oh, God. Hey, we ran into a few. That was enough.
Yeah. But yeah, when Jameson comes back, him and Jahmyr are both Alabama kids via, other schools, Ohio State for Jameson and Georgia Tech for Jahmyr. So I feel like they both need to shine for this team to do well. Same for David Montgomery. We'll see how he plays against his former team when he plays you guys in Chicago. Does he shine to say, hey, you guys shouldn't have let me go, that kind of thing. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, as long as he just continues the same production he had last year, I think they'll be in a good place. Hendon Hooker, I know he did really well at Tennessee. Can he secure a backup spot, whether it's second string or third string, so on. And lastly, Graham Glasgow, his return to the Mitten after playing at U of M and with the Lions from 16 to 20.
There's a lot of really good stuff there. When I look at the Lions, where I worry for them, my worry is that Jared Goff is just one game away from turning back into the guy that the Rams had to give up an extra pick just to make sure they got rid of him. Do the Lions have things in place to kind of safeguard against that? Because Hendon Hooker, to me, feels more like a down-the-road development project, whereas, man, if you just had a better feeling about the quarterback right now. As you said, this division is up for grabs. They could grab it by the throat.
Yeah, this is true. I'm looking at the backups right now, and about the best one you got is Teddy Bridgewater, and that's kind of not encouraging. So, yeah, I would say I'm right there with you. Like, you got to make sure you just keep Jared healthy, and make sure he's throwing to the right color jerseys.
Yeah, keep him pointed in the right direction. Mike even forgot that the Lions took Hendon Hooker. I mean, he did. At one point, Hooker was being talked about as sneaking into the bottom of the first round, and he lasts into the third round, where Detroit was, hey, why the heck not? We got great value here.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the Tennessee Titan fans were hoping to take Hendon Hooker instead of Will Levis.
Yeah. Hooker's recovering off of an injury, though, if I remember correctly. That would contribute to his fall a little bit, but
yeah. But I'm with you. Like I said, I think he just needs to make sure he stays healthy, make sure he throws it to the right jerseys. Other than that, I don't know what other safeguards they've got.
Yeah. Okay. So it's as with so many teams, there's only so many quarterbacks to go around. So with any team, if the quarterback, as the quarterback goes. I know this is going to be
San Francisco last year. I mean, how many quarterbacks they went through?
Right. All right. So this is going to be a slightly awkward question for you to answer. To give a little bit of backstory here. Zach and I are in the same fantasy football league. In fact, I run it. And we have our draft coming up this week. So, Zach, I don't want you to necessarily give me your draft trade secrets here, but who are some Lions guys that you're keeping your eyes on from a fantasy perspective?
Sure. I would kind of reference some of the same ones I referenced earlier, especially Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like, he did really well last year in fantasy points. Jahmyr Gibbs probably, and maybe David Montgomery if you needed like a solid backup. In terms of people, Lions that I would have liked to have them keep, I think that kind of plays into it too. TJ Hawkinson, Jamal Williams, I think both of them would have been premium pickups in fantasy.
Yeah, those are definitely going to be some guys that the Lions are going to lament. Oh, man, Mike Pat throwing a juicy fun fact at us here. Jared Goff is only 3 years older than Hendon Hooker.
Yeah, I was literally just looking at the ages.
Oh, my.
Teddy Bridgewater's older than Jared Goff, and Nate Sudfeld is actually older than Jared Goff, too.
Sure. Okay. That makes sense, but wow, that Hendon Hooker's only 3 years younger than Jared Goff, because Goff has been in the league now, what?
Probably
6
7
seasons,
years.
I think?
Yeah.
This is his 7th season, isn't it?
Here, experience 8, it says.
Oh, geez, I even was short on it. Wow. Well, he came out so early, and Hooker stayed an extra year, and COVID affected that with him too. Extra year of eligibility there. So that's gonna throw some people up a little bit there too.
That's like the Stetson Bennett and Sony Michel comparisons, that they're similar ages, and Sony Michel's retired and Stetson's in his first year.
Yep. It could be wild. It could be crazy.
Yeah.
All right. So I heard you say playoffs are bust for the Lions heading into this season. Are you? So you're thinking they go ahead and win the division this year?
Either win it or wild card. It all is going to come down to those last couple weeks. If things play out to what I'm thinking they will, because they get Minnesota home and away twice in the last 3 weeks of the season.
Wow.
So they get away on Christmas Eve. They get them at home on January 7th. and sandwiched in between is a game at Dallas. So depending on, I think the whole the season's going to hinge on those 2 games against Minnesota, likely, if it plays out like I'm predicting it to. And so, and one of them's likely going to win the division. The other one's probably going to get the wild card, is what I'm thinking.
Wow. So the schedule makers really had a thing for the Lions. I was going to bring up that the Bears and Lions play twice in a span of 4 weeks. For the Bears, it's twice in the span of 3 games because they have their bye week sandwich in the middle there. Bears at Lions, November 19th. Then Bears at Vikings. Then bye week. Then Lions at Bears, December 12th.
Yeah.
So apparently the schedule makers just wanted the Lions to have all their divisional games in the last 2 months of the year.
Right. December 10th, but yeah.
Just boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, well, they got one of the Green Bay games in that same stretch in between the 2 Bear games. And the other Green Bay one is back at the end of September.
Wow, so the Lions have one divisional game prior to November 19th.
The first half of the season, they got one divisional game.
Wow.
At Green Bay, Thursday night, Prime Video on the 28th, September 28th. And everybody else, that first whole half of the season is all, non-divisional, if you will.
Wow. Well, that can work to your advantage, or that can hurt you, I suppose. It depends on how you want to look at it.
Yeah. I brought up the Raiders game with Larry, and so I was asking him, what do you think? You think Garoppolo's better than Carr? And he says, hey, man, this is about the Lions. This isn't about the
Raiders. He doesn't want to get into it. He doesn't want to talk about it.
Not at all.
Well, Zach, thank you for hopping on and giving us a little bit more of an in-depth look at the Lions. This is a unique season for the Lions. Since you brought up the double doink, I no longer feel bad about bringing this up. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have won the division more recently than the Lions have.
Oh, the NFC Central back then?
Yes.
Oh,
so, and the next time Ford Field hosts a Lions playoff game, it'll be the first time.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So
I thought you're going to bring up the Rodgers to Rodgers phantom call with 0 seconds left on the clock. Oh my God. That destroyed me.
I'm not a Lions fan, and that hurt me. So I do, as we close out this segment, I do want to say thank you for not only kicking Rodgers out of the division, but intercepting his final pass as a Green Bay Packer. That was just, I loved every bit of that.
Chef's kiss for sure.
Mm-hmm. All right. We need to take one more break. That was Zach Puplis. You can catch him on Thursday night. Lions, Tigers, Pistons, and Wings, oh my. 9 o'clock Central Time, 10 o'clock in the East on Thursday nights. When we come back, we are going to change gears entirely. We're going to talk a little bit of baseball before we get out of here. This is Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey yo, what's up? It's your man Bishop, the voice of This Is KC Sports, the show where we go over the Chiefs, the Royals, KC Current, Sporting KC, MU, and oh yeah, if we got time, we'll even throw in some of that KU stuff from my people on the 913 South. Come and hang out with us every Sunday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What up, Boston sports fans? This is Mikey Two Guns here, your host of Our Bleepin' City, airing every Wednesday night from 7 to 8 p.m. right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Please join me. We'll talk everything Boston sports, all the local teams, college teams. I'm even down to talk MMA, boxing, whatever you guys want. So join me every Wednesday night, 7 to 8 p.m. Chime in with your questions on the chat, tweet the show. We'll even have call-ins. I can't wait to hear from you guys. This is going to be a lot of fun. So once again, it's Our Bleepin' City. I am your host, Mikey Two Guns, every Wednesday night from 7 to 8 p.m. right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. See you soon, people.
IE Sports Radio fans, it's your boy, the SoCal Saint, the host of the premier professional wrestling podcast online today, the IE Elite Wrestling Show. If you're a fan and have a passion for the world of professional wrestling, this is the show for you. I take you inside the ropes with all the athleticism, high-flying, and hard-hitting action, and then we take it backstage with all the backstage drama and backstabbing that goes on in the world of professional wrestling today. If something's going on in the world of professional wrestling, rest assured, the SoCal Saint knows what's going on, and he's going to let you know too. If you're a fan, check us out every Tuesday, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, only on IE Sports Radio. The IE Elite Wrestling Show, your direct feed for all that is professional wrestling, on the only network that is your direct feed for all that is sports. Check us out.
What's good, everyone? It's Drewski, the host of Heart of Texas Sports on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. On this station, we cover everything in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area. From we cover the Dallas Cowboys, the Dallas Stars, Dallas Mavericks, Dallas Wings, Texas Rangers, TCU, SMU, we cover it all right here every Wednesdays from 9 to 10 p.m. Central Time. Make sure you stay live with me on the Heart of Texas Sports on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's going on, football fans? This is me, your boy Larry B, inviting you to join myself, Colin Reynolds, Mike Pat, and John Felipe for one of the most electrifying football shows you have ever heard. 3 and Out, right here at IE Sports Radio. Recap of the week before, a preview of what's to come, and of course, 3 hardcore head-to-head prime-time face-offs each week. You don't want to miss it.
And welcome back into Chi-Town Weekly here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Had some fun taking a look across the division on the other side of Lake Michigan there with Zach Puplis. That was some fun there with that. We're going to try to do that here over the next couple of weeks, get to know your enemy a little bit. Next week, hopefully we're going to have a Vikings host here, and then in a couple of weeks we will talk with Bernie Bango of Big Cheese Sports here on IE Sports Radio, talking about the Packers. But Adam Karnick here with you. One more segment here on Chi-Town Weekly before we call it a night. Do want to talk some Cubs. And good evening, by the way, to Drewski, the host of Heart of Texas here on IE Sports Radio. Jumping into the chat a little bit. Good evening, sir. Glad you're here with us. Before we talk baseball, I did want to just get everybody caught up a little bit. We have some more news came out today regarding Northwestern and their ongoing legal issues within the athletic department and the hazing issues that have been going on. A new lawsuit has been filed against Northwestern University, former head baseball coach Jim Foster, the current athletic director Derek Gregg, and two of the athletic administrators. There are three plaintiffs in this lawsuit. They are all from the baseball program: former pitching coach John Strauss, former hitting coach, recruiting coordinator Dustin Napoleon, and former director of baseball operations Chris Beacom filed the lawsuit jointly. Effectively, they are arguing that they were bullied by the former coach Foster, who asked them to violate NCAA rules and deny medical care to some of the student athletes. These coaches and administrators then began complaining about Foster's behavior to administrators at Northwestern University in October. They filed a formal complaint to Human Resources on November 30th of last year. However, they claim that the university did nothing to change the situation, and in fact, the plaintiffs were then retaliated against. They were demoted and eventually let go from the program, specifically because they raised concerns. This is what the three men are alleging. Both reports, according to ESPN and to WGN Channel 9, are mentioned in this report. So more stuff going on at Northwestern. We'll keep our eyes on that for sure. Apparently, they're going to try and play sports this year. I'm not sure how they're going to be able to do all that with all the fires and all the smoke that's going on up there in Evanston. All right, we don't have a show immediately after us here tonight, so we've got a little bit more room here before we call it a show. I did just want to check in on the Cubs. They've got the night off tonight, but it was a rough week last week for the Cubs. Ultimately, they split the week. They went 3-3, dropping 2 out of 3 to the Mets. They did take 2 out of 3 to the Blue Jays. I misspoke earlier, Taryn. I apologize. Yes, they did take 2 out of 3 from the Blue Jays, but a bad loss yesterday, 11-4, and that one kind of stung a bit. Kind of took the wind out of the sails a little bit of the weekend that was. Did have some great stuff from Javier Assad, though, on Friday night, having a career-high 7 innings pitched, as he has officially been put into the rotation in place of Drew Smyly. Drew Smyly has been demoted to the bullpen. He will be a long reliever or perhaps a lefty specialist for the Cubs, but it makes all the sense. They had to get Smyly out of that rotation. He was so ineffective, especially in the first inning, just constantly putting the Cubs behind the 8 ball and really making things hard on the team overall. So they demoted him into the bullpen, promoted Javier Assad to get into the rotation. He responded by throwing 7 strong innings against the Jays on Friday night, got the win there in the Cubs' 6-2 victory. Now they've got the night off. Now they get to live in the American League Central for the next week and a half. They've got 2 against the White Sox starting tomorrow night and Wednesday night. Then Thursday off. They host the Royals for 3 games over the weekend. That should be an fairly straightforward 3 games for them, and then they go to Detroit for 3 games next week against the Tigers. They got to take advantage of this. You've got 8 straight games against teams that are not just sub 500, but are out of it below 500. You know, the White Sox, the Royals, and the Tigers aren't fighting for anything right now. The Cubs need to take advantage of this. They have not announced a starter for the Wednesday night game as of yet. Expectation is that's the day that Marcus Stroman is allowed to come off the injured list. So it's looking like the expectation is they could have him throw that game. Honestly, I'm okay with them waiting. I'm okay with them in that spot, waiting one more spot for him. And the way the calendar then lines up, his spot in the rotation wouldn't come up again until the second game of the Tigers series, so next week, Tuesday. I'd be fine rolling the dice there in that one and expecting that you can still beat the White Sox without Marcus Stroman. Give him the extra couple of days. Let him ramp himself back up after his stint on the injured list here. You should still be able to beat the White Sox without Stroman. They've got going tomorrow night is going to be Kyle Hendricks going up against Touki Toussaint. That should be fairly straightforward for the Cubs in that one. The Royals shouldn't present too much of a challenge in those 3-day games. And then you've got the Tigers. It's going to be a nice setup here for the Cubs the next week and a half. Hopefully they can make up some ground a little bit. The White Sox did the Cubs absolutely zero favors by playing so poorly against the Brewers this weekend. The Brewers off tonight, so the Cubs can't make up any ground on them. Both the Brewers and the Reds off tonight, so nothing going to be changing in the National League Central standings as we sit right now. The Reds, they're going to be hosting the Guardians, and the Brewers are out west taking on the Dodgers this week. So that could be some good opportunities here for the Cubs to make up some ground, quite possibly against the Brewers, if they're just able to take care of their own business a little bit. All right, that is going to do it for our show here tonight. Big shout out, big thank you to Planet Jerky Beef Jerky, premium brisket beef jerky. Find them planetjerky.net. Check them out. Order yourself some bags. I've got a couple of bags waiting for me upstairs. Actually, I am anxiously excited to try them out and let you know. I will let you know next week what I think of them. I'll also put some stuff on social media. Follow me at Adam_Kernick. On Twitter, I'll give you a little bit of a review of the Planet Jerky, the couple of flavors that I have and what I think of those. So thank you to our sponsor, Planet Jerky. Thank you to Larry B. All the hard work he's doing behind the scenes at the station. It is not going unnoticed. Thank you to Zach Puplis for hopping on the show talking about the Lions tonight for our debut segment of Know Your Enemy. We will be talking Vikings next week. I'll let you know who the guest is. Again, follow along on Twitter at IESRC and at Adam_Kernick for that. Thank you to It's Drewski, Taryn Rodriguez, and Mike Pat for hanging out with us in the chat room tonight. Thank you, gentlemen. Finally, thank you, the listener, whether you were listening live tonight here on Monday night on Spreaker, or if you're catching the show as a podcast on Spreaker.com, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Google Podcasts, however you were listening to us, thank you. I really appreciate it. Tell your friends. Send them the link. Hey, I like this podcast. Tell me, check out this guy. Tell me what you think. Pass it along. Please help the station grow. Finally, we are not while there's a little bit of a break, we are not it for IE Sports Radio tonight. Be sure to tune in a little bit later tonight. We got a little bit of time off, but then coming up a little bit later tonight, we're going to be having a debut here on IE Sports Radio later tonight. Where you at? Sports Chat. Talk with Joey, talking all things Nolans. Tune into that tonight. That is at 10 o'clock Central. Until then, I'm Adam Karnick. Have a good week, everybody.